Hello everyone, it's me Zippy, and today I'll be doing a quick video, and today's topic is languages. So I know last time I did a video, actually I think three of them, where I talked about Swahili, and I taught, I did kind of not taught, but like I did mini lessons on Swahili. And so today I wanted to do something a little bit similar, but a little bit different. I wanted to make more videos about what languages I've been learning and languages that I know. And so I've been making the first one being Swahili, and this one is going to be on Spanish, and then I'll do one in Chinese. And later on, I'll do some more as I keep learning. I've been learning French and Chinese so far, and is that it? I think so. But yeah, obviously I know English, but that's what I've been working on so far. And I wanted to just, it's more like an, I guess, um, a video for anyone who's interested in learning Spanish, or maybe they want to learn Spanish, but they're kind of scared and they're kind of nervous about languages, and maybe they've never learned the language before. This is a perfect video for you, and I've made it just for you to enjoy. So I started learning Spanish when I was in 7th grade, and honestly, it's kind of late. um, I want to get into deep about the subject, but personally, it's better to start when you're younger. I'm a fast learner, so it doesn't really affect me, but I wish in America we would be taught languages like they do in Europe, where you start like when you're like literally like in pre-K, elementary, because and that's not even with the exception of people who are taught languages at home. You know, like where I'm from originally, you already know like 3 languages by the time you're entering school sometimes. So that's what I kind of wish would be replicated in America. People say like, oh, Americans, they don't know like 2 languages, like they're all monolingual. Well, it's actually not our fault, and I don't want to blame schools either. But other countries you go to around the world, you'll have kids taught very young, in early primary, elementary school, and they just don't do that here. So by the time you learn language, it's gonna be in middle school. If you're lucky, maybe late middle school, and then high school you kind of advance it. But by then, I feel like it's kind of you're not gonna be fluent. Let's just say that you're not gonna be fluent by the time you leave high school. And graduate. So a lot of people go into learning languages in college and university. That's when you really want to get into it. Usually, you can be like a teacher of some sort of grade level. But I think just here, because English is the main language, it isn't the official language, obviously, in the U.S., but it's the main language. It's kind of taken for granted. So yes, the people who aren't from America, we are monolingual, most of us, but it's not like we just shut off all languages and oh, languages aren't important. We're never taught them at a young age, and by the time we are taught, it's too late to be fluent and just have that as your second language automatically. So that's the issue that I see a lot here. And even me, like I wanted to learn French, but you can only learn one language, and that's kind of weird thing. Like why learn only one language? Why not learn more than one? But the school system tells you to learn only one language, not more than one, not two, not three. You can't go above and beyond, which I find very limiting because you see people in other schools they learn so many languages, even just from what they learn at home, and it's just kind of different here. But anyway, just kind of off tangent, kind of giving you a reason why maybe Americans are monolingual for the most part. Anyway, moving on, I want to talk about Spanish. As I said before, I've been learning Spanish since I was in 7th grade, so like around 12, I guess. And it came to me very easily. I've always found languages easy, and Spanish for me was very easy. And I think the biggest advice, not advice, but just biggest point I would drive home to someone who, who wants to learn Spanish, but is maybe not sure if they'll do well. They're not going to be able to like learn it as quickly as possible. I would tell you right now, if you're an English speaker or you're a speaker of any other Romance language like French, Italian, Portuguese, especially Portuguese, it is very easy. They have words what are called cognates, and cognates are words that sound and look similar and mean the same thing as they would in Spanish or English. So, for example, what word do I give you? We have two words. For example, vacación, which means literally vacation. It looks very similar to the English word vacation. And then you have rosa, which is rose, literally the rose, the flower. And so you can tell, and I've always, my Spanish teacher always used to tell us that if you don't know the word, come across a word in Spanish and you don't know it, but it's a cognate, it's so helpful, Just think of the English meaning, and then you have it, I mean, I come across a word like, I don't know, let me use what I did before, vacation, and I'm like, what is this? I can remember, oh, it's a cognate, vacation. So that's a huge chunk of the Spanish language that already first and foremost. So you don't even have to transliterate it. You don't have to think about it too hard. There's a bunch of words that are cognates, and it's really helpful when someone's learning because it's similar. Now, for me, also, Spanish, grammar is one thing, but I want to talk about also just what is it? Just in Spanish, how it's very much easy to learn even the pronouns. That's a huge thing that I find easy, and I think I mentioned last video. It's similar to how it is in what is it in Swahili, and in all languages I feel like it's similar. English, the pronouns in English and Spanish are not the same. It's not like if you're learning it, but these pronouns are very easy to learn. That's the first thing we learned in 7th grade. The pronouns are super easy to learn, and we had this kind of song that we would learn. And I think let me try to remember. It's on YouTube. It's like I don't know what is it. It's like yo soy, tú eres, él es. It was like a song that was like, yeah, I don't know, but anyway, there's a lot of things you can use to remember the pronouns, and it's super easy. You have yo, which means I, and then you have tú, which means you, and you have él or ella, which would mean him, her. Then you have nosotros, which means we, us. Then you have, I'll get to that part, but then after that you have them and their, which is ellos or ellas. So ellos is for males, a group of males, but also can refer to both a group of females and males. But ellas refers to only a group of females. Then you have a tricky little component of Spanish. Not tricky, you just have to get past it. It's the Spanish vosotros. So I say the Spanish vosotros because it's literally the form of us, we, means the same thing as nosotros, but it's spoken primarily in Spain. That's where it came from, obviously. But also you'll hear it commonly, at least from what I've heard, in Uruguay and Argentina, which are countries that have a lot of Spanish influence in them. So those countries you might hear it, but it's definitely, you won't hear like nosotros in Spain, but also you won't hear like vosotros in like the rest of Latin America outside of those two countries. So it's a little bit different because of that. But when we learned Spanish, we were told to just forget about that, forget about vosotros and the whole pronoun or whatever comes with it, unless you're going to Spain and going to live there, then yes. But even then you can pick it up. It's not going to be impossible. And I don't think the Spanish people will terribly be confused when you speak to them and with the Latin American pronoun nosotros. I think they'll be like, what does that mean? So it's understandable for sure. I haven't been to Spain, but I can tell you for sure that I'm going to be that crazy. It's just a slight difference, really. And so those are the pronouns. The what is it? How many pronouns? I don't know, but it's very easy, especially when you make like a chart. This chart where you have yo, and you have under there tú, and you have él or ella, and you have on the other side nosotros, and we have also vosotros here, but you can also, we used to always mark an X on it, a huge X, so we kind of like throw it away. And you have ellos and ellas. And I'm sorry, I used I said ello instead of ello. I'll talk a little bit about the pronunciation, which isn't crazy either. Anyway, after that, and this is just basic Spanish, just a basic thing that probably a kindergartner in Spain knows. But it's just literally there's two types of, what do I call it? What goes to the pronoun, right? So if I'm gonna say I am, and you would say yo soy. So I can say I am Zippy. Yo soy Zippy. Then you want to say you are this. Tú eres. Tú eres, it means you are. Then el es means he is. Ella es means she is. And also el can mean it if you want to. And then you have nosotros somos. It's a little bit different, but that means we are. Then you have, I'm going to skip vosotros, by the way. I'm going to skip vosotros in this video, so if you're from Spain, don't be offended. And we have ellos son and ellas son. So those are the things that mean they are. So it's very simple. But the key to remember is that you won't always have to use soy or somos or son or eres or es, because in some instances, like a temporary situation, say like I am currently at this location, or I am currently feeling. If you want to like talk about your feelings, like I'm feeling sick, like yo estoy triste, I am sick, I'm tired, things like that. You would use estoy, the verb estar. You would use the verb estar. So before we use the verb ser, which means to be. As in literally me saying yo soy Zippy, I'm saying I am Zippy. And then that's who I am, that's who I'm being. And by saying estar, it also means to be, but in a different context. So it's kind of a little bit, you have to remember kind of the differences and what you would use, what situation you would use them in, but it's pretty easy to remember. Like when I'm talking about feelings, I'm talking about like stuff like I'm currently here, but not permanently. Like I'm not saying I live here, but I'm currently like I'm at the hospital, or I'm at the bank. You know what I mean? So I'm not there permanently, but I'm gonna move places, things like that. And so let's go over estar, which would be a little bit similar to ser. So saying I am in another way is saying yo estoy. Yo estoy means I am as well. Then you have another verb, which would be, another form. Tú estás. Estás. And you have él está or ella está. Remember that the tú form has an S after it, and the él and ella form has just no S after it. That's a huge distinction you have to make, because it can be confusing. If you sometimes take it away, it can be confusing for someone. Then you have nosotros estamos. Estamos. Then after that, you have ellos están or ellas están. So that's a little important distinction to make. So please remember, learning Spanish, the difference between ser, to be, and estar, to be. They both mean the same thing, but different situations. That's the biggest thing. Drill down what situations you'll be using those two verbs in. So that's a huge thing. But also, a huge note that you learned early in Spanish is that you can take off the whole pronoun part. You can take off yo, you can take off tú, take off él, ella, nosotros, and ellos and ellas. Just take it off. So me, I can say I'm Zippy. I could say yo soy Zippy, but also I can say soy Zippy. Just soy Zippy. So literally, you'll hear a lot of people who speak Spanish just take that whole part off. If you are a Spanish speaker, why do you have to say the whole sentence of yo soy Maria instead of soy Maria, or instead of saying nosotros somos Juan y Manuel, you can just say somos Juan y Manuel. We are John and Manuel. So that's it. That's just what you'll find a lot. So save your breath, save your time, and chop off the whole part of yo and tú and yo, tú, ellos. Just chop off the whole part. So all you need is somos and son and soy. That's all you need. I want to go into another thing that I think people might get too concerned about, but I'm going to tell you right now that the alphabet is not a huge deal. It really isn't at all. And I think it gets overblown sometimes because we think about English and how we spend so much time on our alphabet when we're like little kids, right? Don't get worried about alphabets, please don't. Because even me, I'm learning French right now, and alphabet isn't that important either. In Spanish, we basically skipped it. Even sometimes I wondered, why don't we cover the alphabet so much? Like, why did we just like brisk past it? We barely learned it. But because it's not important. The important thing is knowing the sounds and the pronunciations. You don't have to know what a, b, c, that you know what I mean. Just knowing the pronunciation, the correct pronunciation, and sometimes it changes. Because in Spanish we have accents, and accents change how you say the certain word or letter, right? So it's different, and it can change the meaning even at times. So it's important to know the accents and the differences between that. If you read Spanish, you obviously can tell the difference. But also, when you speak Spanish, you have to pronounce the accent as well. You have to make sure that you're pronouncing it in a certain way to convey, oh yeah, it has like, this is what the word means, you know what I mean? So that's the biggest thing about Spanish is its pronunciation. Forget about the alphabet, forget about the importance of that. Pronouncing your words is super important, and it can change, it can vary. But accents are pretty something you learn pretty much very early on in Spanish if you have to even go a second further. Then we have to go into numbers. Numbers are not bad at all. I think most of us can count in Spanish a little bit. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, diez. After that, you keep going. That's just 1 through 10. Then you have once, doce, trece, catorce, quince, dieciséis, diecisiete, dieciocho, diecinueve, and veinte. Veinte meaning 20. And after that, you see a pattern. You know what I mean? Listen to this. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then not 20 after that, but 30, 30. And then it goes so on like 31, 30, you know what I mean? So it's this whole easy pattern that you find out after doing that. So remember that you have 1 through 10, which is kind of a little bit wacky, you know what I mean? There's no, like, it's not really a pattern there, but, and you have, I like to think about it like this, 1 through 10 is kind of different. You have to memorize that on your own. I can't help you with that. But when you go from, 11 to 15 is kind of similar to the numbers 1 through 5. So think about this, like uno would be once. See the pattern there? Okay, uno, once, that's 1 and 11. And you have dos and doce. And you have tres and trece. And you have cuatro and catorce. And you have cinco and quince. Quince. See how it's like similar? I always think about that. I thought about that pattern and I think about, 1 through 5 in Spanish and 11 through 15 in Spanish are very similar to me. So I kind of made my work easier when I think about, those numbers. Then from there on, after that, until you reach 20, you add 16 in front of the numbers 6 through 19. Sorry, 6 through 9. So think about it. You have 6, but to get 16, you add 10 in front of it. So 16, 6. So 6, 16, 16. So, for example, 6, 16, 7, 17, 8, 18, 9, 19, and so on. It ends there, sorry. And you have veinte, and that's where it becomes so much easier because from there on, as you have veinte, 20, and literally add on the numbers 1 through 9 to it. So to get 21, you add veinte, and you attach uno to the end of it, so veinte uno. You want to get 22, add dos to veinte, so veinte dos. So on and so forth, and you see this pattern throughout. you can do this whole pattern throughout. I mean, the thing that changes is numbers 20, 30, 40, and so on. But also, 20, 30, and 40, how do you remember that? It's very easy to remember 20, 30, and 40 because think about this. Veinte is a little bit different, but trente, tres, trente, tres. Oh my gosh, that's so simple. Like, those sound similar, right? Because it's a similar number, 3 and 30. Then you have catorce and cuarenta, cuarente, sorry, I can't talk. You have four, cuatro, and cuarenta, 40. Isn't that crazy? It sounds the same, 4 and 40. So going all the way up to 100, you can find this pattern, and for me, it just made it a lot easier. So I'm like, what's 40? What's 50? What's 60? Oh, okay, that's how it works. You know, it goes like that. It's a pattern that you'll find a lot in numbers, and I like how it is. It makes my life easier. If I get stuck and I don't remember a number, I can be like, oh, I can use the pattern that I learned. So I hope it makes sense to everyone. Then I want to go over one little thing too as well, which is just the punctuation. I think that's pretty self-explanatory because as English speakers or the speaker you whatever language you speak, probably seen this before, which is basically just the pronunciation marks in Spanish. Sorry, the punctuation marks in Spanish are different than those found in English. So, for example, and I think it actually makes sense too, to be honest. Instead of having like you have an exclamation part, right? Exclamation point at the end of sentence in English, but in Spanish you have an exclamation point before the sentence, but it's upside down. Then in you have a question, right? You have a question. So in English we have a question mark after the sentence. In Spanish you have a question mark before the sentence, but then it's upside down as well. So those are exceptions to, I mean, not exceptions. Those are the kind of the rules we have in Spanish. And the reason why it's like that, and I think it's super cool how they did this, is to make you understand, like to kind of give you an idea, like what is it, like a question you're asking, or is it like an exclamation, like oh my gosh, like gasp, you know what I mean? It's like, let me give you an example. Like if I have, if I'm reading or whatever, and I have exclamation point, right? I'll see it later. I'll see it later on in the text, in the sentence. But if I have an exclamation point at the beginning of a sentence, oh, I can tell, like, oh, I can maybe raise my voice, so I can kind of like make it exclamatory. But then with a question mark, also, I can do the same thing. With a question mark before my sentence instead of after my sentence. So I can be like, oh, I can ask like a question, like, ¿dónde está? And be like, ¿dónde está? Like kind of like a question, right? Because I see the question mark before I see the sentence. So I think it's really cool because it gives you an idea of what to expect and what to, kind of say, or what the idea or what's happening in the sentence. Then I'm gonna go over another tip that I have that I find very, very useful. It's actually something I discovered. I wasn't given this tip by someone else. It's this tip that I found, this pattern I found that I found really cool. So in Spanish you had adverbs, right, like in English, and I found it very easy to learn adverbs, but also because I saw a pattern, or maybe a cognate, really not pattern, but cognate. And you'll find like this one, for example, like actualmente. I think of it as like actually, you know what I mean? So it's very similar to what the English word is, right? And you have sorry, recientemente, which means recently. That's similar to the actual word, right? Like in English. Now let's hear some more. Necesariamente. Necessarily. Like that's how it, like I see the pattern, see what's going, and finally we have another one. Sinceramente. Sinceramente meaning sincerely. So when I looked at those adverbs, I realized how similar they were to English and how much of my work was kind of done already. If I can see this word, I'd be like, oh, sinceramente, oh, sincerely, So I kind of got an idea already of how English, Spanish, what they meant. That made my life a lot more easier. Now I've gone into some tips. I've gone into some things that I've learned in Spanish, and basically Spanish isn't hard. Sorry, no, it isn't hard. If you know English, like I said before, if you learn English and if you learn another Romance language, it's not going to be hard at all. I think most people they can understand Spanish, but they struggle with pronunciation. So I think people love speak or people they struggle with reading out loud or talking Spanish. They struggle with the pronunciation. It's very bad for them, and that's one thing that people need to work on. And for me, I'll tell you what I struggle on personally. One thing that I struggled on in Spanish that's very important, it's kind of a beginner thing, obviously, is the tenses. When you're learning beginner Spanish, you start off a couple of basically years just where you're learning um, present tense. Present tense is what you're learning, and it was quite hard for me to understand the rules of past tense and future and conditional and subjunctive. It was very hard for me because I didn't understand it, and there's charts out there which make my life easier, I guess. Just like in present tense, you have like yo soy, tú eres. You have the same thing but for different tenses, like conditional and future and so on. Because you do have like it's funny because in English you have like a future tense, right? Like past, present, future. But in Spanish you have like two tenses in the future, two tenses in the past. Like one is like completed, one is like incomplete. It makes it kind of like it makes it more complicated than English. So actually, the English tenses are easier than the Spanish tenses. So that's where I struggled in, to be honest. It's a lot easier in other languages, but this one in Spanish, it made it hard to learn. But it's just something you have to memorize and use your charts. There's a plenty of charts you can find out there on the internet. And you can just make your own. It's pretty much just this six box chart, literally. But it's important to know tenses because you cannot just go out in the world with just a knowledge of only present tense words. Trust me, it's not going to work. People won't understand what you're saying. Like if I'm telling someone, um, if I'm telling someone, oh, so what did you do today? I'd be like, oh, I go to the movies instead of I went to the movies. It's like, okay. So kind of like just even having to like kind of maybe it's like just work on those tenses are important, please. Um, Finally, the last thing I would say is that I would definitely stress finding someone who speaks Spanish and talking to them because for me, I've always thought my Spanish speaking skills were great, but my listening skills have been awful. I'm having to listen to YouTube videos of people speaking Spanish to just help me. Um, I remember watched like telenovela in seventh grade when we first started learning this. We watched one, and it was we need subtitles. Obviously, we're just learning Spanish, but people tell me, when learning languages that they not people tell me, but I've heard people say that they use telenovelas or they use TV shows and movies to learn languages. A lot of people do that. People use that like English. People use TV shows in English to watch you know, to learn English. They use movies and stuff like that. It's really a great tool for them. And even for someone who wants to learn Spanish, I would definitely recommend that. Listen to the radio in Spanish, as well. Pick out some words. But I would definitely stress finding someone who speaks Spanish and having a conversation with them. I had a friend from Ecuador, but I didn't get to see her that often. But we would speak Spanish. I practiced my Spanish with her, and she practiced her English with me. So that was very great. I like being in an environment. I like being with someone where I'm forced to speak another language. It helps me learn. I like learning language through practice and through actual experience. And when I have to when I have to speak the language, because maybe the person doesn't know, or because it's just a new experience and it's cool to talk to them in their own language because you get to know them more. I find it very much a better way for me to learn, and so I love taking the opportunities to do that. So definitely, if you know someone speaks Spanish, and I don't mean like a teacher because it's gonna kind of be a little bit different with a teacher. I would just say with someone who just is your casual like friend, maybe someone you work with. Just go ahead and try that. Definitely put your work into that. But that's my experiences with Spanish. That's my tips I've had. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please no, let me just tell you right now, the Spanish is not hard to learn. It's very simple and easy, and everyone works at their own pace. And I know sometimes it's hard, but trust me, there's hard languages out there in the world than Spanish. Spanish is one of the easier ones, and you have those lists of like the easy languages to learn. Spanish is number one because it is easy to learn. It's very simple and it just requires patience and diligence. Um, you don't need like as much memorization as like Chinese. It's not as complicated. You know what I mean? And if you speak English, it's very simple as well. It's not going to be difficult. So take your English skills and take them with you when learning Chinese. Don't no, sorry, when learning Spanish. Sometimes with like Chinese, you have to kind of like take your English skills and throw them away because it's like a whole new language. It's totally different. With Spanish, it's very much similar, and even though it's different with the grammar structure, it goes instead of subject verb object, it goes like subject object verb. I think like you have the adjective before the verb, sorry, before the object, which is kind of weird for us English speakers. That's just a small thing though. And people say like oh it's like instead of something like let me say instead of something like Rosado Blanco. I'm sorry, not Rosado Blanco. Rosada Casa, pink house. Sorry, what am I saying? Casa Rosado instead of Rosado Casa. That's saying pink house instead of so if you speak English, right, you'd say, okay, that's Rosada Casa, pink house, right? But no, in Spanish it's just the opposite. You switch them around. You have adjective, then you have object. So it'd be Casa Rosada, pink house. But that's a really small thing. I mean, people like finish the adjectives are before the object. That's kind of crazy. It's very small. It's very small. And once you see that over and over again, it becomes natural because it's Thailand language. It becomes so natural. You don't pay mind to it. So people will be like, oh, it's kind of crazy. How do I get past that? It's very simple. It's not even any bother. So that's my tips to you. Um, if you want to know some more about Spanish and learn some more, I'd be happy to help anyone with learning Spanish. I'm always learning. We're always learning, right? And I'm trying to get fluent. I'm trying to get to the point where I can really work and as myself. I want to get to the point where like I can like go like a Spanish speaking country and just feel so comfortable. With listening, speaking. My writing and reading is very good anyway. But for me, and speaking as well, I like speaking as well. I haven't much of a chance, obviously, but it's great as well. Although I'm a little bit slow, I have to translate it in my head. Uh, but listening, I feel like I need to be better. So I'm working on things like that. Listening to TV, to radio, to people. So that's how I learn. And that's how I hope that's how you learn somehow. You find your own way. Everyone's way is different. It's all unique. So best of luck on your journey learning Spanish, and see you guys soon. Bye.